The safety is off. There's a round in the chamber. This is Armed Alabama. Sponsored by McCoy Outdoor Company, Mobile's hometown full-line outdoor sporting products and gear store. An interactive talk show discussing self-defense, product reviews, shooting tips, safety, and more. Your calls, comments, and texts welcome at 343-0106. Now, here are your hosts, retired judge and certified NRA instructor Rusty Johnston and certified NRA law enforcement instructor Adam Strange.
In 2005, Katrina let her rip, taking dead aim at the coast of Mississippi, causing death and devastation like no one had ever seen, and anger and frustration in the town of New Orleans. And they blamed George Bush, and they blamed the head of FEMA. They told everybody that would listen to them shout. They blamed the mayor, and they blamed Governor Blanco, cause nobody came to get their sorry asses out. When the levees didn't hold, the water started coming up, and all at once they realized that they were out of luck. So they all took refuge in the Superdome. It didn't take them long to make themselves right at home. Well, they stole TVs and they stole fine jewelry. Everybody got a new pair of Nike tennis shoes. Stole guns, DVDs, fur coats, cold beer. They stole some stuff that they couldn't even use. With the water and the sewer now deeper than their thighs, they started shooting helicopters, bringing them supplies. Then when the army had the nerve to fire back, the Reverend Jesse Jackson said it's cause that they were black. And they in the streets, they raped young women, they committed every kind of unthinkable sin. They did some things that you can't even mention, with the only intention to get on CNN. Now the water went down and they all went home. Now they sit around and they bitch and they moan, cause everything is worse than you could ever expect, and they wonder who the hell is gonna send them their next check. Now they got no jobs, they got no money, but they got away cause they never got caught. They ain't no better than they was for the storm, and don't you know that everything's the government's fault. They stole TVs and they stole fine jewelry. Everybody got a new pair of Nike tennis shoes. Stole guns, DVDs, fur coats, cold beer. They stole some stuff that they couldn't even use. They blamed George Bush, they blamed the head of FEMA. They told everybody that would listen to them shout. They blamed the mayor and they blamed Governor Blanco, cause nobody came to get their sorry asses out.
No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
All right, this is Judge Rusty Johnston, and welcome to a special edition of Armed Alabama. We talk about pistols, rifles, shotguns, ammunition, concealed carry, personal defense training, and attacks on our God-given right to defend ourselves and our family. I'm here with co-host Adam Strange, and it's special in that we have the author of a great book, the definitive book, in fact, on the illegal gun seizures in New Orleans that took place after 2005's Hurricane Katrina. So we're almost 11 years, the anniversary of that. And we're going to give you a couple of background stories on that, and he'll be joining us in just a few minutes. That is Gordon Hutchison. His book is The Great New Orleans Gun Grab. If you will go to our webpage, that is armedalabama.com. It explains about it, it gives you a little film on it, and tells you places that you can order the book. A lot of us didn't have power at the time, so we really didn't know what was going on when it happened during Katrina. Bill O'Reilly, in fact, who is a master of misinformation sometimes, he took a call a couple of years ago that said it was an urban legend. Adam, did you realize that? Bill O'Reilly said that was all an urban legend.
Yeah, I had heard that.
Yeah. I'm sure Snopes, or whatever it is, Snopes.com, I'm sure they said it was an urban legend. We're probably not going to take calls for about 45 minutes or so, but if you want to be thinking up a question, let's try to keep it related to New Orleans, gun seizures, that type thing. Our number here is 251-343-0106. If you're just on the border or you don't want to listen on your FM radio, two places to go. You can go to fmtalk1065.com, or you can go to armedalabama.com/radio show, but you don't need to remember that last part. Just go to the website, and when you see radio show, go to that, click the player, and you can hear it over the internet streaming live. Interestingly, it's several seconds later because of something to do with the speed of light. and all. But, Adam, let's get a little business out of the way before we're joined by our guest.
Yeah, Judge, need to discuss, we're going to have a defensive firearms class, concealed carry, home defense, pistol class, September 17th at Three Brother Arms. So we're looking forward to that. We had our last one this past month, earlier this month, August the 6th. We had a good group of people. Everyone enjoyed it. So if you're interested in taking a concealed carry or home defense class, this is our level 1 course. And by all means, email us to sign up or for more information. And you can email us, adam@armedalabama.com or thejudge@armedalabama.com. We would love to have you in the class. It's a really good program. The judge gives the law portion of the class, whether it be Alabama, Mississippi, or Florida, because we have...
You can say whether it be right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong or whatever. That's what you're going to get. But we always have somebody from Florida or Mississippi or whatever that comes and joins us in our class. And so the judge goes into those states as well as Alabama 13A. But the judge also discusses constitutional law and, of course, the Second Amendment and your rights with the Fourth Amendment and other things. So it's a really good program. It's about 3 hours of that, 3.5 hours somewhere. And the rest of the time we spend out on the range with myself. And we are...
and it's guaranteed to be a little cooler.
Yeah, hopefully so. But with that, Three Brothers have a covered area to shoot, so it keeps the sun off your back. It makes it real nice. But the rest of the day of the 8-hour course is spent out on the range in your shooting and getting familiar with your firearm and getting to know it and know how to use it and use it properly to defend yourself or your family. And that's what the real focus of this class is about. The focus of the class is to make you a gunfighter and to be able to defend yourself or family.
Yeah, practical defense shooting. You know, that's what we want to teach people, not Olympic range shooting. Practical defense shooting.
Real quick, want to call out our advertisers and sponsors, because without them, you wouldn't be hearing the show right now. So real quickly, our advertisers are David Parnell at Palmer's Toyota, Dr. Justin Foster at Foster's Chiropractic, Grayson Air Condition, David Grayson, Mamoon Siddiq at Remax Realtors, and McCoy Outdoors. And, of course, we have a new advertiser, and that is Matt Green of the law office of Matt Green. So we appreciate all those advertisers.
And as soon as he will sit down and cut his ad or give us the text, we will have it running. You know, he's got to be perfect.
Dragging his feet there. But we're thankful to have all of these. So if you will, be sure and check these businesses out and make sure you pay for them.
And tell them you heard about them on our show. You know, a lot of people will go in, buy a car, buy a gun, and they'll never mention why they're there. And it's really important for everybody, especially us. Hey, the reason I'm here is I heard y'all being bragged about on Armed Alabama.
And if you would like to advertise your business on Armed Alabama, or if you just like the show and want to contribute, and we have actually, Judge, we have several people that's just contributors to the show.
Yeah, we do. We're going to put up a link, too. But, yeah, if you just want to help pay for, let's say, the Bama Carry ads or some other gun rights organization, no amount's too small.
Yeah, so just email us, or you can contact the station. You can email us, adam@armedalabama.com or thejudge@armedalabama.com. So definitely get with us about that, and also get with us about the class September 17th. It's going to be a fun class. We always have to have a good time, and we always really enjoy it, and it gives us a chance to kind of meet with our listeners, and we have a really good time. We have a blast.
And we don't have a date yet, but into September, we're going to do just an enhanced law class. Now, if you've been to our shooting class, you don't need to come. But a lot of people, if you know how to shoot and shoot well, I don't need the shooting class. We're going to have a class. It'll just be a classroom portion of the law version, but spend another hour maybe. So it'll be about 4 hours. We'll give you the location on that. We're going to have to step into a break now. We'll be back after the break. a little bit more news, and then we'll hear from Gordon Hutchison, Great New Orleans Gun Grab.
We'll be back. This is Armed Alabama.
Step up to the firing line. Armed Alabama is back. Questions, comments, and texts at 343-0106.
Well, I like guns, I like the way they look. I like the shiny steel and the polished wood. I don't care if they're big or small. If they're for sale, hell, I want them all. I like guns, I like guns, I like guns.
All right, that was the judge's favorite song, I think.
Well, you know, Senator Phil Gramm said, I've got more guns than I need, but not as many as I want.
That's usually the case.
Yeah, so I thought, you know, he ought to be in one of those Quotesmith books.
All right, if you're just now tuning in, this is Armed Alabama, and we'll just give a kind of a recap of the show so far, where we will have joining us at the half hour will be Gordon Hutchison, the author of The Great New Orleans Gun Grab. And this was during Katrina that the mayor and
you just heard him, actually. That was
police and the police chief.
Actually, Commissioner Chief
Yes.
Eddie Compass. No one will be allowed to have arms. We're going to take away all the weapons.
So they confiscated firearms as people were leaving the city at roadblocks, and they confiscated them house to house.
And we've got the famous case of Patty Coney, who they went by her house and they said, "Are you all right?" And she said, "Well, I'm fine. Aren't you afraid of looters?" "Well, no, I hadn't seen any looters." "Well, what if some show up? Do you have any guns?" "Well, I've got my grandfather's old pistol. You want to see it?" "Well, sure." They coaxed her into seeing it. She brings it out, unloaded, a .32 revolver, and they do a takedown procedure on her. The California Highway Patrol, this 70-year-old woman, they break her shoulder, her arm, something else, and they just knock her to the ground. Fortunately, a television crew was there. So, she tells them they can't come in. They needed a search warrant to come in. They just came in, and they knocked this old woman down and disarm her and kidnap her, take her out of her house, put her on a plane to South Carolina. And don't want to get too complicated here, but there was a federal case called the Emerson case, U.S. versus Emerson. In 2001, the Fifth United States Circuit Court of Appeals held that the Second Amendment was an individual right that belonged to the people, and that the state and local governments were bound by it. The U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear it, grant cert. So that meant throughout the Fifth Circuit, the Second Amendment applied to the state and local governments. That was, 10 years before or 8 years before the McDonald case, where the U.S. Supreme Court held the same thing. So they were violating the Second Amendment as well as other things, Fourth Amendment, when they did all this. There was no provision in Louisiana law that allowed them to do that. They had a state of emergency provision to where if they ordered you to leave and you were not on your own property, you could be ticketed.
Yeah, the misnomer there is that martial law was declared or whatever.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
Yes.
There was no, and thanks to my research assistant here, there's no provision in Louisiana law for martial law. And the federal government, the only time they can ever declare martial law is if the courts are not functioning. If the courts are open and functioning as they were, you can't declare martial law, and that's only by a military official. And so there was no martial law. Unfortunately, we all know that, I don't know how it is now, but pre-Katrina, the New Orleans Police Department was not known for its high levels of ethics. I know the first time I went to New Orleans by myself was at the 80 or 81 Sugar Bowl. We played Arkansas, and my father warned me, stay away from the New Orleans Police Department because they were just known for, let's say, making money off tourists in a lot of ways. So this isn't a condemnation of law enforcement. It's a condemnation of them. You know, they stole cars to get out of New Orleans for Katrina, actually stole cars, abandoned their post, I don't mind them abandoning their post. I probably would have too, but not stealing somebody's car to do it. I mean, that's insane.
So, Judge, if you remember a few weeks back, I was telling the story about a friend of mine that was assaulted in Walmart parking lot. And
right.
What I want to discuss hopefully next week is with a little research that I've done as far as Walmart goes. But there is a national crime wave regarding Walmart stores and parking lots. And Walmart is trying to address the situation, but they're not really going as far as what they should. As law enforcement and city officials are concerned, Walmart is not going far enough to try to address the crime.
Yeah, there's a point where they need to have real police officers in their parking lot.
And a lot of Walmarts, they do that. They do have security officers, and they also hire off-duty police officers to be there. But that's only at a few Walmarts, and they do not do that widespread. So what happens, it opens the doors for these criminal aspects of these individuals to come in and attack people at Walmart parking lot, whether it be in front or back.
Criminals go where the victims are.
Yeah, and it was just some of the things I read was just absolutely amazing, the kind of crime that takes place at Walmart. There was one police chief said, we don't really go anywhere else in the city. We just hang around in Walmart and wait for crime to happen.
You know,
and that's how they allocated their resources for their department. They just hung around Walmart.
I took a guilty plea, I think it was, of someone who shoplifting from Walmart. They tried to stop him. It turned violent, and he was in a struggle with the shoplifter. And a woman on one of these handicapped scooters, she took her cane and she was beating the security agent, trying to help the shoplifter escape. So I thought, how handicapped is she really? But, you know, we saw the film of it. It was really pretty shocking.
So I just want to remind everyone, when you're in Walmart or any shopping center, because that's where the possibility of these things could happen, as it did with a friend of mine who was attacked as he was putting groceries in his vehicle. So make sure that you look around, make sure you pay attention, stay off your smartphones as you're coming in and out of the stores. Look around. And that's the thing, make yourself a harder target.
And that was on Schillinger's Road,
yes,
where people would normally consider a safe area.
Yeah.
No place is safe.
So many people were just shocked that it was right there, broad daylight, Schillinger's Road, Walmart.
Yeah, no place is safe because criminals go where the good victims are. That's why they say crime downtown is low. Well, sure it is. They're not victims down there most of the time. They're not going to victimize somebody at noon on Monday because there are way too many business people. And at other times, there's no one there. But around the malls and in Schillinger's Road, there are plenty of women shopping, and they make great victims.
Yeah, so we talk about these things in our class, Judge, you know, trying to make yourself a harder target outside the home, and you want to make yourself a harder target inside the home.
Right.
And that is bolstering your locks, lighting in around the house, outside the house. But the main thing is bolstering your locks where you have a good, solid door lock.
Lock the door.
Yeah.
Lock the door.
Because how many times have you stayed where rapes have taken place or home invasions or whatever, and the locks weren't even turned, the windows weren't even locked?
Right.
Or in some cases, not even down.
Right. You know, it's just a lot of people still think this is Oldsmobile where you could keep the windows open and feel the breeze, and unfortunately it's not. You just got to lock down. And
so many people I've heard were in the backyard playing, swimming in the swimming pool or whatever, and their home was burglarized while they were in the backyard because they didn't have the door locked.
Right,
you know?
Right. Or how many times have people gone to the front door? There's, you know, I'm not paranoid. I act like a Yankee now when I go to the door if there's a stranger. Somebody comes to my front door, and I happen to be writing a capital murder charge, so I was a little more aware. And one of these salesman types selling, it's always rug cleaner. He comes to the door, sticks his hands out, and I say, I don't shake hands with people I don't know. And he's kind of taken back. And I said, what do you want? And I didn't get it answer in about 10 seconds. And I said, I'm busy, get out of here. and I just slammed the door. Now, I wouldn't have never done that 10 years ago. But, now you have to do that, because if you don't know who they are, they get you in a hand lock like that, and you're in a real fight. And you don't have the time. Don't fool with them. You don't know who they are.
Yeah, so you always want to kind of keep people at arm's distance or more,
right,
when they approach you.
Absolutely.
Just for that reason, because when they're that close, it doesn't take much at all as far as reaction time for them to be able, like you said, grab you, get you in the arm lock, right, or whatever.
Stick a knife in you.
Yeah. So you just don't ever know. And to be honest with a friend of mine, he's a certified Krav Maga instructor, former Marine. He's a really good guy, but he's somebody that's very competent. And somebody,
maybe
if he can have
confidence,
yeah,
got him.
The thing about it is if it can happen to him in broad daylight at Walmart, a former Marine, somebody that's proficient in hand to hand, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It's really, I had the case of a serial rapist. I won't mention the name because there are a lot of victims out there, but it's estimated he raped between 50 and 100 women. In every case, it was through an unlocked door or window. There was no smashing through. There was no locksmithing. It was just an unlocked door or window. And let me tell you, he was a bad guy.
Yeah, and with the gruesome murders that took place over the weekend in Central, I mean, those are the kind of things you got to think about.
Well,
is how I use this term fortified, but how hard or how easy is it to you
and who
for you to get in your
home too?
Yeah,
because so many of these things are the daughter's ex-boyfriend, and be a jerk and say you can't date that kid. He's no good, because your instincts are usually right.
Yeah, we say that before. Listen to that little voice in your head.
You better believe it.
Now, if there are multiple voices, you may want to seek
you may
more
want
help
to see somebody.
I
think we need to step into a break, and then we'll be back with our guest and with Gordon Hutchison. Remember, go to our website and look it up, The Great New Orleans Gun Grab. We'll be back after the break. Armed Alabama.
When you're running down our country, man, you're walking on the fighting side of me. You're walking on the fighting side of me.
All right. Welcome back to Armed Alabama. So glad you could join us. Joining us now, Judge, is Gordon Hutchison, the author of The Great New Orleans Gun Grab.
Or Descent into Anarchy. Gordon, that's the part I love. And Gordon's calling us from an island near Mandeville. It didn't used to be an island. Isn't that right, Gordon?
Well, actually, I'm in central Louisiana, which is a bedroom community to Baton Rouge, but it's an incorporated city. And my own house was an island. 90% of the homes in Central flooded, and 90% of the homes over in Livingston Parish flooded. It's just been, y'all remember them in your prayers, because I was fortunate. I built this house up way above the floodplain when I built it, and I was an island, but my brother's house flooded, and the people are suffering over here. There's 110,000 people have applied so far for FEMA assistance. It's a disaster of you. The magnitude of it is just beyond belief. You ride through these streets and people's belongings are piled higher than pickup trucks. It's like an alleyway between them. It's just unbelievable. And just remember them in your prayers, because a lot of people are homeless.
Well, we will. And Gordon, if that was in Connecticut, it would be on the news nonstop. That's just how it happens. If it's Northeast, you're going to get on the news. If it's where we are, it's maybe a story for a couple of days.
Right.
It's just happened. I was mentioning to them that I think I told you.
He finally made it down here.
Oh, great. Yeah, I saw that.
Trump was here last week. He came down pretty quickly. So.
And, everybody, of course, criticized Bush for not coming down the day after Katrina.
Right.
And, of course, I don't know. I'm kind of the old school. When they had the big Mississippi floods, what was that, 27?
27.
There was not $1 in federal aid that went to anybody. And
right.
Maybe that was too tough, but, like Grover Cleveland said, where is it in the Constitution I'm authorized to take money from citizens and give it to other citizens? But, that battle's over, I guess. But,
yeah.
Gordon, tell us, Well, first I'll remark to them, somehow I heard you on Tom Gresham's Gun Talk. Well, I listen to it every week. And I heard you on there, and I got the book pretty quick. And I'm not one of these people that writes reviews every time I read something, but wrote your review and somehow wound up being the first review of any type. I don't know there are any unfavorables on Amazon, which is kind of wild. I think it was sometime in November 2007.
I remember that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and like I said, and then I have some jerk that said, it's just, they can comment on your comment. Just kept harassing me for about a month, and I finally got tired of him. But Gordon, kind of tell us how you and you have a co-author. Does he pronounce it Mason or just Mason, like we would say over here?
It's Tom Mason, and I used to call him my writing partner, but I can't use that term anymore. So
not anymore. No, co-author. That would imply a little bit more than just writing, I guess.
So Todd and he was my editor. You're probably familiar with, you may be familiar with Mississippi Sportsman Magazine, Louisiana Sportsman Magazine. They have a chain of magazines. They didn't have one in Alabama, but they had one South Carolina, one North Carolina, Mississippi, and the flagship is Louisiana Sportsman. They had 50,000 circulation at that time, I think.
Wow.
Massive circulation, massive magazine. They were 300 pages of soft cover magazine on hunting and fishing in Louisiana, and I was their shooting sports writer, and I wrote a column for 20-something years for them on the shooting sports. And Todd called me one day. I worked for 25 years as a reserve with the sheriff's office and a firearms instructor for the sheriff's office here. I worked for the Advocate newspaper, the daily newspaper in Baton Rouge, and he called me one day and he said, are you aware that the NRA has a meeting here with Katrina survivors tonight? It was a Tuesday night in April of 2006. Of course, Katrina occurred the end of August, the beginning of September 2005. And I said, yeah, the media doesn't cover them, but they put out, emails and stuff like that. He said, if you can get down here and cover this meeting, I can get it in the May issue. And I said, so let me see, all of these years you've been telling me my absolute final deadline was the 10th of the month. Here it is, the 18th of the month, and you're telling, or maybe it was the 16th, I don't remember which. I'm saying, you can tell me you can get something in the May issue? And he said, don't you ever try it. So I left work early, and I rushed down here, and it was in one of the big hotels down there. I forget which one, and it was on the third floor, and they had a theater in the round. And what was interesting was that there was only one television station covering this, and they were there for about 5 minutes and filmed people going in. And the only two outdoor writers or journalists of any stripe that were there were myself and Don Dubuque, who is a legend in Louisiana. He's been a radio outdoors reporter and had his own outdoor show all over the state. Now Don and I were the only two there covering it. And they did a kind of a theater in the round, and Wayne LaPierre was there, and Chris Cox was there, and they walked out on that little stage and had microphones set up all around. And the whole time we were waiting for them to come out. They had big screens on each end of the room. There was probably 300 people in this room. They had a pretty big turnout. And they were running screens of Patty Connie being attacked, the lady that was dropped by the highway patrolman. And they were running screens of Buell Teal, who was telling about his guns being taken from him out on Lake Pontchartrain, and these various people that had these things done to them. And they walked out on the stage, and they said, we're not here to talk. We want to hear your stories. And these people would step up to the microphones, and it was like somewhat like they would take a zipper and unzip it, just run it down their chest, and this absolutely vitriolic hatred of NOPD would pour out. And I've been a cop. I'm still a cop. I'm the constable where I live. I've been either a reserve or a full-time cop for 30-something years. I never heard anyone talk about their police department like that. And it absolutely stunned me. And the stories they were telling about being beaten and about having their guns taken, and I'm scribbling notes, and these people would step down from the microphone and they'd walk away. And I'd run out in the hallway and scribble down their email address and their phone number and run back in to catch the next story. And the stories were just blowing my mind of people having their guns taken and confiscated for no reason.
And these were the good folks. These weren't the criminals that were being arrested looting.
Oh, they were ignoring the criminals.
Right.
And so this stuff is running around in my mind on my way back at 1 o'clock in the morning, midnight rather, and I got home about 1 o'clock in the morning. And on my way into work, I wrote the article that night before I went to bed, and on the way into work about 7:30
you must have had the adrenaline going after that one.
I had a lot of energy, and I called Todd, and I said, I got him on the phone, and I said, have you opened it yet? And he said, I can't wait to read it. I'm dying to read it. I said, well, I'll tell you this right now. There's a heck of a lot more than a magazine article. There's a book here. And he agreed with me, and we started going down, interviewing people, and we looked at a couple of different things, and we looked at the survivor end of it, and that didn't work, and there was a number of those came out, and it hit on us that the story that nobody was covering was the gun confiscation.
Yep.
And there were a lot of those. So we started chasing down stories and rumors, and he lived in Metairie, and I would go down every other weekend. We would go out and we would chase rumors and chase people down and get their stories, and one person led you to another person, and thus came the book.
It was, we didn't hear about it in Mobile until probably your book, really. And,
right.
You'd hear kind of rumors, but you kind of, you want to side with the police, although I was telling them my first solo trip to New Orleans was 80 or 81, whenever Alabama played Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl. And my father, who was an attorney here, warned me about the New Orleans police, even back then. Said, stay away from the don't misbehave in front of them.
That there were a lot of good, and I've got some good friends that are retired from the New Orleans Police Department, good people, real good people. And they loved the New Orleans Police Department, but it had its problems. It always did. And there were a lot of good NOPD cops that lost everything and stayed on the job with nothing. There were stories about them going into Walmart and that was flooded and getting underwear and socks and leaving, IOUs in case they were wanted and taking nothing else.
Yeah.
And, they didn't have any clothes and they didn't take baths and they ran, it was just one thing after another. And the breakdown for NOPD was the loss of communications. Once they lost their radios because their central communications were gone, it was just kind of each unit fended for itself, and a lot of them got out and did good work. But the problem with a situation like that is that, unfortunately, and I've done it for 30-something years, unfortunately, there's a certain element attracted to law enforcement that they are bullies, and they're held in check by the rules and regulations.
They're attracted to the judging profession,
but
too,
when
I'll tell you.
you lift the cover off, the veneer's gone, they come forth, and they were the ones that caused the problems.
Yeah. And then there's some that, the just following orders type, as I say, that defense went out at Nuremberg. You got to, if it's an unconstitutional order, you got to question it. And which that clearly was. And, and wow, but there's some good stories in your book. Well, the book is so much better than, seeing the 10 or 15 minutes worth of film the NRA made. When we'll get into it, your Algiers point stories and
absolutely.
people helping people. Story. And it's the reason you ought to own a firearm. I mean, your book right there. Because anybody that, you don't have to be as proficient as you or maybe us, but gosh, you need to have some knowledge just in case a disaster happens.
That's right.
You're at somebody's mercy if you don't have that. Because you showed it there. And I was telling them the Emerson case over there, which was 2001, and when the Supreme Court cert denied in 2002, the Second Amendment already applied to Louisiana and Texas. So, clearly.
Was that the Emerson case? About the doctor that pulled his gun on his wife and wasn't that Timothy Emerson? Is that
I think so, because it was a criminal case. Yeah. I think that's it. And that opinion was so much better than the Heller or the McDonald opinion.
Right.
It's great. And so it already applied to Louisiana. So you didn't need the other cases, let alone there wasn't any affirmative statute or law authorizing NOPD to do what they did. It was just done. Gordon, I think we have to step into a break, and you just hang on with us, and we'll be back 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll chat during the break, and we'll be lining up some callers to talk to us also. Hopefully they've got good, pertinent questions related to all of this, and Phil there is, I never know what he's going to do. All of our clips, bumper music, are related to the hurricane, so we'll see what we got. Folks, we'll be back in about 2 minutes with this Armed Alabama and Gordon Hutchison. Order his book during the break. We got the links on our website.
Step up to the firing line. Armed Alabama is back. Questions, comments, and texts at 343-0106.
They took them. And they didn't have a right to take them. They didn't have a reason to take them. That was the thing. We did nothing wrong. But they took them anyway. He said, be thankful we're taking your guns here. Why should I be thankful? Well, if they catch you with them on land, they're going to take you straight to jail.
And that's the people, Gordon, that you were talking about earlier. Welcome back to Armed Alabama, that were out on Lake Pontchartrain and were stopped by, I guess, the sheriff's department. And, people are honest. If you got any guns, mostly to state officials, of course, you don't have to answer a question, but it's not a crime to lie to state officials. It is to the feds. But people are honest. Yeah, sure. And then they boarded these people's boats and took everything they had. All the firearms they had.
Oh, yeah.
And I always say, when they ask you if you have any firearms, why don't you tell them about the floor tabs you borrowed from your sister-in-law, too, and everything else you've got in that car that you probably shouldn't have? Just spilled.
I have people ask me all the time, because I'm the senior concealed carry instructor in the state. I've taught concealed carry to thousands of people, and I had a friend, a young black woman, asked me here just a while back. She said, am I required to tell a police officer that I have a gun in my car if they make a traffic stop? I said, absolutely not, unless you have a concealed carry permit. And then you're required to inform them in an official investigation, and that is an official. But if you don't have a concealed carry permit, no, she said.
And y'all are one of the few states
that told me that I do. And I said, well, go back and tell them that Gordon said they're full of bull.
And you're saying under y'all's concealed carry law, you have an affirmative duty, if stopped for even speeding, you have an affirmative duty to inform the officer. Is that correct?
Well, it's kind of a strange situation. If you have the gun on you, you're required by the concealed carry permit statute to inform the officer and allow that officer to disarm you if that officer wants to do it. But if you don't have the gun on your person in your car, Louisiana considers the vehicle an extension of the home.
Right.
The inside of the car is a constitutionally protected area over which state has no jurisdiction.
You don't have to have a concealed carry permit to have one in your car. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. In the state of Louisiana, you can have a gun anywhere you want in your vehicle, loaded, unloaded, under the seat, on the seat, or hang it like a dangle from the rear vision mirror.
Because, I'm probably like you, that somebody ought to have it on them or in their car so they can get to it in a second or two, to defend themselves. But you and I know most people don't do that. They've got it buried somewhere, and it take them 5 minutes to find it. And I tell them, if it is clearly not in plain sight and not going to be in a place where you're going to have to access it, where your insurance papers are and all that.
Right. That's absolutely correct.
If it's me, I wouldn't tell them, because you're just perhaps opening Pandora's box.
Well,
if you're in a state that doesn't have to.
If the state adheres to ACIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System, and practically all of them do, when they run your license plate, it comes up on the license plate information you have a concealed handgun permit, or at least the owner of that license plate does.
Well, so they tell me they can't do it here, though, because
that you have a gun. So even though you don't have it on your person, so technically in Louisiana, you don't have to tell them about it because it's not on your person, because it's in a constitutionally protected area. They already know. And the way to do it, and this is what I tell my students all the time, when they walk up, if they walk up, you sit there with your hands in plain view on the steering wheel, take your left hand and you hand the officer your driver's license, and in between your fingers is also your concealed carry permit, and say, there's my driver's license, my Louisiana concealed handgun permit. I have a gun. It is located on my left ankle, in the console. You know, I have one on my left ankle and one on my right hip. What do you want me to do with the gun? And they appreciate the honesty and the upfront method in which you handle it. And I've had probably a dozen students in the last year and a half tell me they knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were let go from a traffic violation because they had that permit, and they told the officer about it up front.
Yeah. You know, we had somebody on from the sheriff's department. We've got one of these laws that say, you know, you can't release the names of the permit holders unless there's an inquiry from a criminal investigation. So you can't release the names unless there's a specific inquiry from a law enforcement officer, you know, a call in. Does so-and-so, you know, my name, have a pistol permit? And so it doesn't even come up with a tag. Of course, half the time I'm in my wife's car. It wouldn't come up anyway because she doesn't have one. But, you know, the problem is, and you know this, there's a minority of police officers that think they're the ones in charge of law enforcement, not you. What are you doing out here? You know, what are you playing cop for? And, you know, of course, I didn't have that problem because of my position. But, you know, a guy called us last week, and I can understand the stop for speeding. He does just what you suggested. We don't have a requirement here to do that, but he does it. He's disarmed. His gun is run through the ATF stolen database. Right. You know, he's there 30 minutes, and, you know, I start thinking, you know, that was probably an illegal search because they took his gun. First of all, how many officers do we all know that aren't really qualified? How many different type of handguns are they? 10,000? And, you know, most discharges, I'm not going to say accidental because there's no such thing, but how many take place? They take place when loading and unloading. I would take, if I knew somebody had a gun, I'd put him in my car.
It's funny you bring that up because I can't tell you the times out on the street I've taken handguns away from other deputies who were turning it on, which we're trying to figure out how to open it or take the bullets out of it.
I've seen guns out of it.
We hurt somebody. So.
I've seen guns. I don't know how that thing operates. I don't want to touch it. You know, so let's go sit in my car away from it, you know. I mean, there's a lot of neat stuff. And I'll say I just bought a model 1917, a Colt model 1917. I had one as a kind of a permanent loaner, and my relative came and got it back out of my gun safe. And I fell in love with it, and my 90-something-year-old relative remembered he had it in my safe. So he fetched it back, but I finally replaced it. So I'm glad I got it back. It's just kind of a cool thing anyway to have. But, folks, for y'all that don't know it, it was well, Smith & Wesson made them, Colt made them, and maybe somebody else. It's a revolver, but it uses 45 ACPs, 45 automatic rounds. Right. And you have to use, they used half moon clips, which I really never understood, but you can use a full moon clip, or in theory, your round could slip into the cylinder, but it's a great gun. It's very accurate, but it is a revolver, but it's just one of those cool things. World War I is when they used it. They say the reason is because they couldn't make enough 1911s. I don't know if that's really true or not, but just a neat gun. And you know what's funny? For what I bought it for, I couldn't have bought a new Smith & Wesson revolver, you know, for that price. So you kind of wonder, do gun prices actually keep up with inflation? You know, so, one thing I wanted to ask you, we may be too close to another break again. This is the time somehow gets compressed when we do these shows. They go real fast. We got two places where we can get your book. And folks, this is really, if you're interested in gun rights, you need to read this book. We've got the link up to your publisher site. I think it's greatgungrab.com. It's on our website. New Orleans Gungrab.com. Yes. When you go to our site, it'll be on there. And if you don't see the Amazon link, it's because your pop-up blocker is on, they tell me. So take it off and you'll see that. So if you need to order through Amazon because you've got a credit card or whatever, you can go to that site. So either one, they're both listed there just on the main page. where the story of this show is. Order from one of those places. It's a interesting, good read, and you will hear stories that will curl your hair. If you don't think it's possible, they've passed the Vitter Act and other things after this, but it just shows if you don't have a good understanding of chain of command, and if you have people that are scared and don't understand the law, you can have something like this happen. I think, as I recall, Gordon, some of the snowstorms in North Carolina, they kind of had similar things, but on not as big a level within a year or so after this.
It's happened up in the Midwest. I want to say Kansas, because we always think of Kansas and tornadoes, but there was a tornado event in a county, a small town, and it just destroyed this town, and everybody was out of the town, and they basically cordoned it off and to stop looting, and they went into every house, the police did, the sheriff's office, and took all the guns out. And then people had to go get their guns back. Now, don't ask me to quantify that. I can't. I don't remember. All I remember is reading about it and taking notes on it when it happens. Say, well, there you go. Yeah. You know, it's happened again on a very small basis.
And as you said, we have a Fourth Amendment.
They learned a lot from New Orleans, and they learned a lot from the incident. I remember during one of the hurricane events down here, it was the one, Andrew, whichever one took.
Gordon, I think we got a hard break, top of the hour, and we'll come back. We'll probably take, this would be the time. If you want to call in, 343-0106. We'll be right back.
We don't burn our trap cards down on Main Street, 'cause we like living right and being free.
The safety is off. There's a round in the chamber. This is Armed Alabama. Sponsored by McCoy Outdoor Company, Mobile's hometown full-line outdoor sporting products and gear store. An interactive talk show discussing self-defense, product reviews, shooting tips, safety, and more. Your calls, comments, and texts welcome at 343-0106. Now, here are your hosts, retired judge and certified NRA instructor Rusty Johnston and certified NRA law enforcement instructor Adam Strange.
In 2005, Katrina let her rip, taking dead aim at the coast of Mississippi, causing death and devastation like no one had ever seen, and anger and frustration in the town of New Orleans. And they blamed George Bush, and they blamed the head of FEMA. They told everybody that would listen to them shout. They blamed the mayor, and they blamed Governor Blanco, 'cause nobody came to get their sorry asses out. When the levees didn't hold, the water started coming up, and all at once they realized that they were out of luck. So they all took refuge in the Superdome. It didn't take them long to make themselves right at home. Well, they stole TVs and they stole fine jewelry. Everybody got a new pair of Nike tennis shoes. Stole guns, DVDs, fur coats, cold beer. They stole some stuff that they couldn't even use. With the water and the sewer now deeper than their thighs, they started shooting helicopters, bringing them supplies. Then when the army had the nerve to fire back, the Reverend Jesse Jackson said it's 'cause that they were black. And they in the streets, they raped young women, they committed every kind of unthinkable sin. They did some things that you can't even mention, with the only intention to get on CNN. Now the water went down and they all went home. Now they sit around and they bitch and they moan, 'cause everything is worse than you could ever expect, and they wonder who the hell is gonna send them their next check. Now they got no jobs, they got no money, but they got away 'cause they never got caught. They ain't no better than they was for the storm, and don't you know that everything's the government's fault? They stole TVs and they stole fine jewelry. Everybody got a new pair of Nike tennis shoes. Stole guns, DVDs, fur coats, cold beer. They stole some stuff that they couldn't even use. They blamed George Bush, they blamed the head of FEMA. They told everybody that would listen to them shout. They blamed the mayor and they blamed Governor Blanco, 'cause nobody came to get their sorry asses out.
Today in New Orleans, they got a lot tougher on the holdouts.
Police department, anyone home?
Not only the flooded areas, but New Orleans' driest and wealthiest neighborhoods, too.
Police department!
The police and National Guard going street by street, house to house.
We need to make sure, too, that whenever we knock on the doors, people refuse to leave. We need to make note, call it in.
They say there are no orders to use force, just strong persuasion, sometimes entering open houses with guns drawn, and instructions to disarm anyone inside.
All right, welcome back to Armed Alabama. Our guest is Gordon Hutchison, author of the book, The Great New Orleans Gun Grab, A Descent into Anarchy. Our number is 251-343-0106. This is Judge Rusty Johnston along with Gordon Hutchison. We're ready to take some calls. And as a surprise, we've got several books of The Great New Orleans Gun Grab ready to give away, and we're just going to give them away to good callers. If you have a good question or you have a good call, we're just going to arbitrarily say, you got a new book. And so that's why you need to call in rather than text. If you want to text, especially something about us, somebody mentioned about a Colt 1917. I agree with you. But if you want to ask a question or make a comment, or you think we're all wet, that the police ought to be able to do what they did, we want to hear from you. 343-0106.
Yeah, it'd be a good time for Sid the Socialist to call in.
Yes, Sid the Socialist. Gordon, I suppose you probably heard that song before. I tastefully bleeped out one word in there. I've learned how to do a lot of things.
I didn't get the song. It didn't play. What song was it?
Well, probably that was the Battle of New Orleans 2.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's one word in there I just couldn't quite. I didn't think our audience, with their delicate ears, ought to hear that. Delicate flowers.
I think they probably all heard the song.
Yeah. Oh, I know they've heard worse, probably. Let's go ahead and take Brad, who is on the line from Mobile.
Hey, Brad. Welcome to Armed Alabama. Glad you could join us.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad.
I'd like to know why is it that these people are coming in and taking all guns and stuff like this, and no one says anything, man. I mean, it's in the plain and white.
Now, what do you mean, like the Second Amendment?
All of it, man. I mean, even the stuff that's going on with the presidency stuff. I mean, man, they're here and they're coming.
Well, we'll see if we can answer your question. All right, why don't you listen to us on the radio? Gordon, you got any?
I've heard enough of him. He wanted to know why nobody said anything about it, and that ties right in with what I called the three great lies about Katrina and the New Orleans gun grab. And the first was that New Orleans was under martial law, which was absolute not true. There was no martial law. That means the military has taken complete control of everything, the governments, the courts, the schools, everything. You know, they run it all, and you have to operate under them. There was no martial law. Never was martial law.
And the courts are closed.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't a martial law, right?
What is it?
There wasn't any martial law. I mean,
there was no martial law. Even National Geographic said, New Orleans is under martial law. And by saying that, these cops all thought they had extraordinary powers and could do just about anything they wanted. The second one was that the great misconception was that under a mandatory evacuation order, you had to leave. And thus, when you didn't leave, the cops thought they could force you to leave. And they went out and acted, a lot of them, like hoodlums. And the third, espoused by someone no less, I should say, than Bill O'Reilly on one of his talk shows. Somebody called in and said, what's all this going on down in New Orleans about these gun grabs? Bill O'Reilly, that's rumors. That didn't happen. That's not happening. That's never happened. Well,
kind of like chemtrails, urban legend.
So what I think what he was asking, the reason nobody said anything is because of the absolute complete ignorance on the part of the journalists who were down there. They saw it happening and didn't report on it because they thought it was okay. They didn't see anything illegal about it.
And most of them were kind of anti-gun anyway, so, it wasn't a big deal.
Right. They thought that it was okay to do it because New Orleans was under martial law. They were repeating that themselves. They thought that because there was a mandatory evacuation order, you had to leave. And, hey, there's a Fourth Amendment in the Constitution. Like one attorney told me, if you want to be stupid, you've got that right. Stay.
That's right.
And
Gordon, we
the
got a
last
bunch of...
was that, nobody was actually taking weapons. Well, they were.
Let's try to get this next one in before the break. It looks like, is it Al and Code In?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Al.
How you doing, Judge?
How about you?
If you could you shed a little light on where we might get some kind of education on Alabama Section 13A? I'm gonna look up the book when I get home tonight, but I just wanted to
cheapest and easiest thing
I enjoy your program. So
yeah, cheapest and easiest thing is Google Code of Alabama 1975. It will come up, and you scroll down until it says Title 13, and you've got two sections in there. You've got the firearm section, which is, I may have to tell you after the break, is a little later on in the code. I think it's 13A, 11, it's either 10 or 11, but I think it's 11, that goes where you can carry your gun, etc., places that are off limits. But the first part, defenses you can use, that's in, I think it's in 13A section 3 -1 and so forth. So you can find it real easy there, or come to our seminar when we have it next month. We'll announce it.
Okay, that's what I need to know. I've looked at it, and it's overwhelming as far as 13A as a layperson. I mean, you just look at Section A, and it goes on.
Unfortunately, you're right. It kind of is.
But I would sure be interested in the seminar. That's what
we'll let you know.
For. Okay, thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, next caller, real quickly. Dale from Spanish Fort, real quick. Just got a few more minutes. 30 seconds.
Sir, I had a gun that was stolen or come up missing at my house, and the FBI called me, and they found it in Fairhope. And the fellow had pulled it on police officers, and I never have got my gun back, even though they've recovered it and all. They wanted me to say that he stole it from me, and I couldn't say what happened. All I knew was my gun come up missing.
Well, don't lie. Do not lie to the feds, because that's a crime.
Well, I didn't lie.
Yeah, just don't do that.
No, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be like the part of the that lies all the time.
Yeah. So just be truthful and fill out whatever form, but be truthful, and you'll be fine.
Well, I did that, and that's been 2 or 3 years ago, and I still haven't heard from my pussy.
You need to call the FBI or file an official report with them wanting to know where your gun is. Do that with the Mobile office, okay?
I appreciate it.
Thank you, sure. Thank you, Dale, for your call.
We need to step into a break. We'll be right back with Armed Alabama.
Step up to the firing line. Armed Alabama is back. Questions, comments, and texts at 343-0106.
Guns will be taken. No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
That happened today in this wealthy neighborhood where homeowners had armed themselves to protect their mansions. Residents were handcuffed on the ground. In the end, police took their weapons but let them stay in their homes.
They were a little bit threatened because our weapons were bigger than their weapons.
That sounds like Ashton O'Dwyer's neighborhood. Welcome back to Armed Alabama with Gordon Hutchison, author of the Great New Orleans Gun Grab, A Descent into Anarchy. And go to our website, armedalabama.com. You see the 2 links there. Order them from either one of the links, and you need to get it and read it if you're interested in all and what can and has happened. A lot of people say, well, y'all talk about this all the time. The NRA does. That's just for fundraising purposes. It's already happened, folks, and you've got to constantly remain vigilant against it. Let's take a couple more calls.
Yeah, because we got 4 calls piled up. John calling from Mobile. Welcome to Armed Alabama. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Enjoy listening to your shows. It's about the 4th or 5th time I've heard it, and really enjoyed it every time.
Great.
I've got sort of a question, comment. My employer is on the east side of the Mobile River. It's one of the shipyards. And we recently had what I call a dragnet first thing in the morning at shift change. Had approximately 25 federal and state agents within the confines of the gate that were initially shaking down employees. I don't know if they were looking for drugs, looking for guns, or looking for illegals. However, as this operation went on through the morning, within the next hour and a half or so, 2 hours, as the, I guess you would say the day shift people started showing up, the office people, they started going through vehicles and found 3 weapons and immediately expelled those people from the facility, and I'm not sure if they were fired or not. Okay, it's my understanding in a general employee parking lot that as long as you're a legal pistol permit holder and you keep your firearm secured in your locked vehicle, you're supposed to be covered by state statute. Am I correct or not?
You are correct. But let me ask you a question before we back up. You said they started shaking down employees. What do you mean by that?
Okay, they had, like I said, approximately 25 federal and state agents. It was the law enforcement branch of the Coast Guard. It was Customs. Let's see, Alabama Port Authority, Customs. I can't remember who else. It was like 5 different agencies. But at any rate, the employees who were driving into the yard, like I said, they searched their vehicles.
Did they ask them?
And, excuse me?
Did they say, can we search your vehicle, or did they just do it?
Well, apparently, they gave them consent to search their vehicles because they were on company property within the confines of the gate. Okay? However, those employees are required to park in a parking lot within the confines of the gate due to their offices being such a distance from the main employee parking lot. So I'm kind of wondering where's the legality of that. If it's a designated employee parking lot, even though it's within the confines of a facility, and you're a valid pistol permit owner and you have your gun secured in your locked vehicle, I mean, I just don't understand how they can, a company can take action against you like that.
Let me give you the statute because it's kind of new. 13A, you got something to write with, or you can listen to the replay. Section 13A-11-90, which says you're allowed to do what the people apparently did. You got to have a concealed carry permit. It's got to be hidden in your car. It can't be in plain view. Your car's got to be locked. Interestingly, and Gordon's probably followed this, the Mississippi Supreme Court received a certified question from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals 6 months ago and said, is it something similar happened in Mississippi? And the Mississippi Supreme Court answered and said, we're an at-will state. There is no cause of action. The only cause of action being for firing of an employee in this state, and an at-will employee is for retaliation for firing a workman's comp. But we're creating another one, and the other one is for firing an employee who brings a firearm on the company premises pursuant to this statute. And so our act isn't old enough to have any case law associated with it. But that's what's happened in Mississippi. So that's just something to think about. But read it yourself, and I don't know what was going on, but, I know you're in a bad position when a company's asking for consent. You're under duress, but generally don't ever give anybody consent to search your vehicle.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, thank you for the call. Sorry that happened.
Well, thank you very much. And like I said, I enjoy your program, and keep it up.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
All right.
All righty.
Next caller is Kyle.
Good afternoon, Judge.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey.
What you got for us?
Just got a quick question for you, kind of maybe a two-part. So what exactly? I've been huddled away in my office all day long at a certain financial institution, and it's just blown me away. Turning on the show that's happening on the ride home. hearing the police knocking down doors more or less and relieving citizens of their firearms just seems ludicrous to me. And I just wanted to.
Well, you know what? Because you said that, you're going to get a free book, and we're going to don't hang up. We're going to want to get your name and address before you get off the air, because you're going to get one of these books in the mail to you. But this happened just after Katrina, and we've got the author on the line. So kind of address your question to Mr. Hutchison, Gordon Hutchison, who's on the line with us, about what you're talking about.
And I've got something else to add to that.
Yeah.
If he was at Katrina, because this is what's got me very, kind of perplexed, is we loaded up a few of my buddies and I loaded up our diesel pickups with trailers and supplies and whatnot. And long story short, we rode down there to pass Christiana, Mississippi after Katrina, and we were armed. We had our sidearms, and we were legally carrying with concealed carry and things like that. And let me tell you what, I didn't see but very, very minimum police presence, and there were, and I kid you not, I'm talking loaded citizens with bulletproof vests on and riding four-wheelers up and down the streets. I mean, it was almost anarchy, and that was just the opposite of what seems to be going on now. So
I know the answer, but I'm going to let Gordon answer it. And remember, don't hang up, because you got a book coming.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you hang on, and we want to get yours, because we'll mail it to you. It's really easy. But Gordon, I know you know the answer, but I know it too. But go ahead.
Because I couldn't include it in the book, but in doing all the research for the book, I forget which town. It may have been, I forget which town, Ocean Springs, or one of the police departments. When this was coming, the chief of police and the sheriff called a town meeting of everybody they could, and they said, arm yourselves. There's liable to be looters, and we'll do all we can, but you're going to have to protect yourselves. Mississippi.
That's the difference. Mississippi.
Took a completely different.
Yeah.
The main place this happened was New Orleans.
Right.
Okay. And they actually told the citizens over there to arm themselves.
Yeah.
And they allowed it. And don't get me wrong, there were cops in New Orleans who ignored people with guns.
Yeah.
It was an element that did this, and they were following the orders of Eddie Compass, the police chief, and Ray Nagin, the mayor.
Yeah.
Well, as in the video you see, it was Highway Patrol from California.
Yeah,
that was Highway Patrol that injured Patty Connie. That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Just following orders. Like I say, I think that went out at Nuremberg, but he'll see. Let's see who we got here. Is it Michael?
Michael
from Theodore, you are on the air.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on your show.
Sure.
I just want to make a couple of comments here. Katrina, people went crazy. I mean, the state of Louisiana, New Orleans, did not they gave us money from the federal government to build the levees, right? And they did not use it. They would not have been affected by Katrina. I feel sorry for the people all the way from Pensacola to past Christiana. But the levees broke and flooded New Orleans, and people went crazy. I mean, they shooting guns like that. There should be a law against it, but there's not. And also, I want to comment.
There's a law against using marijuana too, but it doesn't seem to stop anybody.
I agree with that. Also, I want to comment on the same subject here, Baton Rouge. I want to comment on Donald Trump. I commend him. He was the first one that showed up there. George Bush did do a flyover Katrina. He didn't have a place to land his plane. It was all tore up. He didn't have a place to land. But Donald Trump was the first one to show up. And Louisiana is not a swing state.
Right.
Donald Trump has already won that state. And the Democrats are going to say, well, he showed up for first time.
Right. No point in it, yeah.
He donated his own money.
We got a hard break coming up.
Thank
Great
you, Michael,
points.
for your call.
Thank you.
We got a lot of callers on the line. It's absolutely just lighting up. But we'll have to get to those calls after the break. So just hang with us. This is Armed Alabama.
Step up to the firing line. Armed Alabama is back. Questions, comments, and texts at 343-0106.
All right, welcome back to Armed Alabama. The switchboard looks like a Christmas tree. It's just lit up so much. So we're going to go ahead and try to hit some of these calls. We appreciate everybody calling in. And I believe we have the next caller is Dirk. Hey, welcome to Armed Alabama. Dirk is calling in from Spanish Fort. What you got?
Hey, thank you. This is one of my nightmare scenarios. I live on an extremely remote farm, and how do you respectfully resist someone, a law enforcement official of any kind, coming to you and trying to disarm you in a situation like this?
All right, Dirk, hold on. That's a good question, and
I've got an answer for that.
You got a free book, so that's what I'm saying. Hold on, and I want to let you answer that, Gordon.
All right, I've got an answer for that.
Go ahead.
Having been in law enforcement for 30 years, if you're not required under Louisiana law, now I don't know what it is in Alabama, but under Louisiana law, you are not required to follow an illegal order from a law enforcement officer. If you think it's not a lawful order, you can resist the order. You can resist the law enforcement officer if you are sure it's illegal. But that's hard to tell someone to do. But what you can do, and I have seen this happen. In fact, my own brother-in-law initiated this because he had talked to me. If you question what the law enforcement officer is telling you on the street, you very respectfully say, "Sir, I respect you and I respect your uniform. I'm not absolutely certain that's correct, and I wish you would get a supervisor on the scene so we can talk to him."
Excellent.
And boy, that will shut things down in a hurry. You ask them to get their sergeant or their lieutenant, and he'll know the law and he'll straighten it out.
And caller, one thing to say too, you were mentioning out on a farm. First of all, you have the right to remain silent. Now that generally only applies after you're arrested, but you know, what if he comes to your house and says, how many firearms do you have? What if he also came to your house and said, how many illegal drugs do you have here? Would you answer that question? So you don't have to answer the question about the firearms. If you say none of your business, obviously things are going to go downhill quick. It's not a crime to lie to Alabama law enforcement unless you're under oath. So you say none. But divide up your guns is one thing. If you want to then, well, you know, I got this .22 long rifle, and then you hand that over if things get bad, where your good guns are stashed somewhere else if things really get bad. But the smartest thing to do is, I'll be happy to, can I see your search warrant?
Right.
And, they don't have a search warrant. Say, well, come back with your search warrant. I'll be glad to show you anything in the house.
Do you know what Leroy Harvey told him? He was one of the first stories in the book. He was he had been an assistant to chief criminal deputy of New Orleans Sheriff's Office, and Leroy was a lawyer. And when they started showing up at his house on St. Charles Avenue, he said, "You want to come in here, you come back with a warrant, and it better be from a judge I respect."
Not just a judge, one I respect.
Right.
It's like my son has a doormat that says, "Come back with a warrant."
I love it.
All right, Gordon, we're going to get a couple more phone calls here. We have Josh from Wilmer. Hi, Josh. What you got for us?
Hey, buddy. How you doing today?
Fine. Wait, can you, if you got your radio up or something, we're getting a bad echo, Josh.
Yeah, let me take you off. Can you hear me better now?
That's great. Good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm calling about give a little insight on the gentleman that called a while ago, having the law enforcement come on his job and had the guys go in and search the vehicles. You know, I work for the power company here in Alabama, and I've been with the company for 7 years. I worked over in Mississippi and now work over in Alabama. And I know in Mississippi, we could not, it was up to the plant manager's discretion, we could not carry a firearm onto the plant site. And the security there could search your vehicle at any time.
Yeah, the law there's a little different. If the law in Mississippi is a little different, if it's a locked, secure area, then that law that I mentioned in Alabama doesn't apply in Mississippi. And then when you say plant, it wasn't perhaps a nuclear plant, was it? That's a completely different area, but it's a little different in Mississippi. So that could be, what you're thinking of. But, the problem is when you're faced with perhaps losing your job, a lot of people will give in when maybe they shouldn't.
Well, here in Alabama, and this rule just changed within the last year.
Right.
We have two separate parking lots. You have a parking lot for contractors on the outside. You have a parking lot for employees on the inside that's actually inside the gate of the fossil generation plant. Now, when we park in there, we are allowed to have our guns in our vehicle,
right?
As long as the vehicle's locked throughout the day.
Yeah, and that's what the law says. That's what they're doing right. Yeah, they're absolutely doing right. So
I just want to share a little bit of that. And,
yeah,
I'm proud to work for who I work for, and I'm glad they support us in that. And
yeah, me too.
Anything can happen, on our ride from here to the plant back to home, and for them to support us in that, it's a blessing.
And there are a lot of people that have to go up there at night and all, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, thank you for your call, Josh.
Thanks for telling us that.
So Josh just brought up a point. I used to work with an individual, really good, salt to earth guy, and that's exactly what happened with him. He could not carry his firearm to his employment, to his employer in the parking lot, and as he was going home late one evening, he was assaulted and killed at a gas station on the way home. So being able to carry your firearm, even if you just have to keep it locked in your car, but be able to have that to and from your place of employment is very important.
Wow. Yes, tough.
All right, next caller is Solomon from Mobile.
Hey guys, fabulous show.
Thank you.
Really impressed with it. Listen, I'm still looking at the large number of nut jobs running around with firearms, and I know here in Mobile County we're spending like $55 or $58 million a year with Altipoint, and we still got nuts running around. And
I think they're the largest employer after the school system. They might be the largest employer.
Well, and the psychologist that certifies folks whether they're ready for trial or competent for trial, he's just been picked up in Montgomery. Last week or week before that for picking up prescription drugs, phony prescriptions.
Well, you know what they say. All psychologists and psychiatrists, they're a little kooky themselves.
Well, yeah, and but we kind of relying on these people, and maybe they don't have the ability to be relied upon.
Well, I think you've hit a key point. Is that even a science, psychology and psychiatry? Is an art? And do we take away people's right to write for the paper because they're mentally ill?
I guess you're not trying to get ads or advertisement from.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably not, but, they know it. Most of them, if you talk to them, they know it. It is such an inexact science. But the point is, how many of those people do we all know? How many of them have ever acted out on any of this? Was Alvin York that killed all the Germans in World War II, was he really sane? Who knows?
Well, the only judge I see that's able to do anything with those folks is Judge Don Davis down there. I mean, he's waging a war single-handed.
Yeah.
He can't get the Altipoint to report to him faithfully and fully every month about whether these people are showing up for their treatments and their therapies. And it's like the insane are running the insane asylum.
Yeah, the big problem was everybody complained about people being warehoused, and so we let them all out, and so now they're living everywhere. But we got a bunch of calls, but you made a good point.
Thank you, guys.
And appreciated it. Yeah.
All right, next caller is Wayne from Mobile. Welcome to Armed Alabama. What you got, Wayne?
Hey, guys. I like that intro song y'all had. That was great.
How'd you like my beep out?
Huh?
It was one word I thought was a little crude, so I beeped it out.
Yeah, that's okay. Good. Probably needed to, but the rest of it was good. what's the name of it, and where do you get it?
Well, you can just find it online because they just distributed it. I can't think of the group's name, but go on YouTube. It'll come with a film that goes with it. I split the film off from the music.
Maybe we ought to put
it's called The Battle of New Orleans 2.
Battle of New Orleans 2.
Yeah, maybe we ought to put that on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
We'll do that.
Our Armed Alabama YouTube channel.
We will do that. Go to Armed Alabama and give us about a day. We'll have it up there, and we'll make sure it's downloadable. And just go there and get it.
But you can get it right now on YouTube.
Yeah, you can go anywhere and get
Battle of New Orleans 2.
Yeah, Battle of New Orleans 2.
Great. I'm gonna get it and play it at the intersection real loud.
Yeah.
I guess. Thank you much.
Yeah, sure. Of course, the Battle of New Orleans was Johnny Horton back, when he was alive, obviously, and writing all the ballad type songs. He was really something. Sink the Bismarck, North to Alaska, all of those songs.
We've gotten old when people don't know the Battle of New Orleans and Sink the Bismarck.
Oh, I know.
If people are not recognizing those songs, there's no time left for us.
And they were historic songs.
We're dinosaurs.
They told a story. I heard a guy do a lecture. He was from one of the war colleges, and he was a good lecture on the Battle of New Orleans. And he said, the British were coming through, Lake Bourne and the swamps. And he said, now what's in those swamps? He said, you got water moccasins, you got mosquitoes, and you got zombies. And you got to really, and he was talking as seriously as you could. And I thought.
They related to the zombies.
Yeah.
They asked what a swamp was?
Yeah. He was just describing swamps. And he says, what are in swamps? Mosquitoes, alligators, and zombies.
If you've ever read the actual tactics of the battle, it's really fascinating down there at Chalmette where they conducted the battle.
And this guy really went into it.
Fascinating battle.
It was fascinating, and I've really never had it gone into in that kind of detail from a military guy. And it was real. And the British had some good leadership and some good troops.
They just couldn't get past the zombies.
The zombies were tough. A lot of injuries from the zombies. They were pretty
between
tough.
the pirates, Jean Lafitte, the pirates supplying him with flints, muskets, and powder, and supplying some of his people, and the zombies.
That's right. Turn the zombies loose on them.
Into those, you just don't. That was the European method of warfare. High diddle straight up the middle. You just put two opposing forces and clashed with one another. And there they're wearing these great big red coats with these white crossband X's on their chest. And you got all these Frenchmen and these hunters and all these woodsmen up there, and they all shooting. I mean, what are you going to aim at?
Right,
perfect aiming point.
Right.
They slaughtered them.
Hang on, Gordon. We got a little break coming up. We'll be right back as he cranks up the music here. We'll be back on Armed Alabama right after this quick break.
Step up to the firing line. Armed Alabama is back. Questions, comments, and texts at 343-0106.
Robert Zoss was forced to evacuate when a tree destroyed both of his family's homes.
Loaded with dogs, kids, people.
Then, as they were exiting through downtown, the unexpected happened.
These cops came out of nowhere, said stop, and asked, do we have weapons in the car? And I told him, yeah, I do. He said, get out the vehicle. Had us all sit cross-legged in front while they searched the vehicle. I had a .22 long rifle. My tenant's girlfriend had a .22 pearl handle revolver given to her by her grandmother or grandfather.
But Robert couldn't believe what he watched police do next to his rifle and his friend's pearl handle revolver.
I saw them smash her gun given to her by grandmother, grandfather, just against the curb. The other things that they busted up, the .22 rifle they busted up, these were police officers that went too far. We didn't have any rights. I mean, they treated us like criminals. They treated us like if we were in a third world country.
Well, you can say New Orleans in a lot of ways is a third world country. Judge Rusty Johnston back with Armed Alabama, and we've had with us Gordon Hutchison, author of The Great New Orleans Gun Grab, Descent into Anarchy. And Gordon, we really appreciate you being with us. Want to remind everybody, get a hold of this book. on the two sites on our website mentioned, armedalabama.com, or they can order them for you from the local bookstore. But frankly, you just kind of wasting a little time doing that. But certainly do it. It's the same price whichever way you go. Gordon, any final thoughts you want to add?
Stay armed.
Absolutely. And Gordon is an excellent instructor. If you live over towards Mississippi and you're close to Gordon, it would pay you to take one of his classes. Go website, just Google his name and you'll get to his website. Great looking website too, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for
Gordon,
having me.
thank you again. Appreciate it.
Okay.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gordon.
Eye-opening, Adam. Very eye-opening. And I was afraid that not many people had heard that story, and because it's been downplayed, urban legend. There's a lawsuit, or was a lawsuit over it. New Orleans lied for about a year to a federal judge saying they had no guns. And then lo and behold, a gun was found, a warehouse full of guns was found. So, they lied. They gave the bad ones. The nice guns that were seized were never found. The guns that were trashy were found all rusting, and you had to provide a receipt to get them back. Well, how many people have a receipt? Not many.
Speaking of guns, I went down to McCoy Outdoors this past weekend, and I bought my little girl a P22. It's a little Walther P22.
Great
we actually
gun.
tried out several different firearms, trying to find something that would fit her petite little hand. And the staff at McCoy Outdoors was excellent, very knowledgeable, and they let her try several different ones. They were very courteous and very aware that she was a small little girl, and they treat her as such. And it was really a good, enjoyable experience.
And they had several to choose from.
Oh, yeah, we tried a lot of different 22. I was wanting to get a little small 22 for her first little pistol, something that she could to learn on, and we can work with her as well to let her, learn about firearms. And so she hasn't shot it yet. I've been working with her every night on how to load, unload, all the different parts of the firearm, and so forth. So, but she had such a good time at McCoy's and enjoyed working with the staff there and picking out her firearm. And they were just so great in making that time special for her to get her first little pistol.
And I knew they would be courteous too. I can remember gun shops in the past that would say, "Now, little girl, do you think this is too big?" That would belittle her. And grown women, they would belittle. And
yeah.
I knew they would be.
So that didn't
helpful.
happen, of course, at McCoy's, and it was just such a good experience. So if you're interested in a pistol for yourself or for your wife or for your children to learn and use, definitely go down to McCoy Outdoors. They've got a huge selection there, and if they can't get it, they don't have it, they can order it. So check out McCoy Outdoors. They're just they're just west of I-65 on Spring Hill Avenue. What is that? Is that the old K&B?
Old K&B shopping center.
Or just check them out online. It's McCoy Outdoors.
Right. Good website. Great. And they're one of our main sponsors of this show, which makes them doubly right. But we're not saying that because they're a sponsor. They're locally owned, locally operated, and they've got people that have worked there a long time. They weren't working at Best Buy last week.
And speaking of our sponsors and advertisers, we want to thank our sponsors and advertisers, and be sure and patron these businesses. And we want to thank those, and that's David Parnell at Palmer's Toyota, Dr. Justin Foster at Faulkner's Chiropractic of Tillman's Corner, Grayson's Air Conditioning, and that's David Grayson, Mamoon Siddiq at Remax Realtors, McCoy Outdoors, of course, and our new advertiser is Matt Green with the law office of Matt Green. So we're glad to have him. As a matter of fact, Matt has kind of been the silent participator tonight, so we're glad to have him in the office with us in the studio.
Without this LSU grad, we wouldn't have even been able to talk to Mr. Hutchison. In fact, Matt was working with me when we put together one of my presentations on this, because I remember he found out that there was no martial law possible in Louisiana and some other things for me. Only problem is he put it in LSU colors, the PowerPoint that he sent me. So that didn't work for me. I'll just tell you that. But he did a great job, and say hello to us, Matt.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for having us tonight. Great guest tonight. Renewed our spirit of the Second Amendment. Outstanding guest tonight. Really enjoyed it.
And really glad I talked to him when this flood was just starting, and I thought, I hope he's with us because I talked to him several times, and I thought, at first, well, he's overblowing it. And then I watched TV, and I thought, oh, no, he's not. And so.
Yeah, it's pretty horrific how much water they've gotten
really
there. And so many homes that's flooded. It's just awful.
And, people, I've never had a flood, but I've seen them. It literally ruins your home. I mean, I tried enough cases involving flood, and Matt was with me then. You get water in there. It's never clean. It's not swimming pool water that comes in. It's polluted, and it just ruins your home. And thank goodness that I'm where I am on higher ground. Matt is. And, boy, if you ever are going to buy a home, think about buying one that are up on, I call them pier and beam construction, because being up on that 2 or 3 feet makes it easier to put security cameras in, which we're going to talk about one week, or other utilities under your house. But if you have that water come up a little bit, that 2 or 3 feet may save your house.
No, after Katrina, that was a lot of the mandates within Mississippi and probably even Louisiana. I'm not sure, but I definitely can talk to Mississippi that your house had to be so high above waterline. And if it wasn't, then you had to elevate it either by piers or by elevated foundation.
And, that was the construction law in Mobile up until World War II. You had to be up on piers, and they got rid of that because mass construction after World War II, it just took longer. But, the old folks knew what they were doing when they had high ceilings and all of that. They knew about what the weather was like around here.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure and check us out on Facebook. Our Facebook page is Armed Alabama Radio FM Talk 106.5. And, of course, we're on Twitter, and we have an Internet site as well. It's armedalabama.com. And, of course,
you really need to get to that Armed Alabama. It's got an encapsulated version of this show. It's got about a 10-minute film, and, of course, it's got the links you need. So, really, if you were late or didn't get the whole show or even got it, go to armedalabama.com, main page.
Yeah, and you can go and listen to all our previous shows, including the night show, at your leisure.
And download them if you want to listen to them in the car or wherever.
And, of course, don't forget we have our firearms class that we're going to be doing September 17th at Three Brothers Arms. If you're interested in that class, it's from 9 to 5. And it's a concealed carry home defense class. It's a level 1 pistol defense. So if you're interested in that class, please email us, Adam@armedalabama.com for more information, or the judge at Armed Alabama for more information. Or if you just want to sign up, absolutely email us, contact us, let us know. We'll be glad to have you in the class.
If you have suggestions for other interesting guests, I've had this guy on the agenda for a long time, but if you know of somebody written a book or is very interesting, give us an email at that same address because we'd love to talk to them. We think it makes it interesting, but we don't know everything, but we'll find somebody who does. Until next week, same bat time, same back channel. We'll see you next week on Armed Alabama. Adam, any final thoughts?
Yeah, we had so many phone calls tonight. We didn't get a chance to get all of them, so I just want to apologize for all those that held on the line and held just to try to talk to us, so we apologize. So next week, be sure and call with your comment or question. And, again, we had lots of texts that we weren't able to get to, but we appreciate your phone calls. We appreciate you listening to Armed Alabama.
Book winners, give us about a week to 10 days, and you'll have your book. And it's very interesting.
An Okie from Muskogee, a place where even squares can have a ball.